Main Street took on Wall Street this week as private investors took efforts against hedge funds, and it resulted in billions of dollars being lost by those hedge funds. What happened in the aftermath, though, was an attack on capitalism. It was a display of why socialism will never work, and an argument that Joe Biden is out of touch with everyday Americans. You're listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast. By now, you've no doubt heard about the private hedge funds that lost billions of dollars. A group of private stock traders, they all gathered on Reddit. They were in a subreddit and decided that they noticed some short selling activities by the hedge funds, specifically on GameStop stock. Those hedge funds were borrowing stocks that they did not own, and they were betting that they would drop in price, so they were conducting short sales. And if they succeeded, they would proceed in making millions of dollars. And they do this every day. It's nothing unusual. They do not physically own the stocks. They short sell them, and they profit on the backs of Americans that are trading stocks without short sales. They do it all the time. But these private investors saw an opportunity. They saw an opportunity to capitalize on what was happening due to the short selling volume that was being placed. So they decided to buy the stock. It drove the demand for the stock up, and in turn, the price went up. The result was that the hedge funds were forced to buy the stock to cover their losses, and it was purchased at a significantly higher price. They were forced to put capital, liquid capital, into their groups to keep them solvent. It also resulted in these private investors practicing capitalism and making thousands of dollars each, and probably combining for millions or even billions of dollars. One hedge fund said that they lost $3 billion, and it's been estimated that the total financial implications of this were around $5 billion. Across social media outlets, private investors were showing off their images of their stock accounts on this popular app, Robinhood. They were showing thousands of dollars. They had invested small amounts and were making thousands. So those hedge funds decided to fight back. They took to the mainstream media and they argued for people to feel sorry for them, except most didn't. Elon Musk called them short apologists or shorty apologists. And it was argued that by the hedge funds that this was illegal, that it shouldn't happen. But in reality, it's not. It's only illegal for corporations to coordinate an effort like this, or for insider trading to happen like this, but none of these applied to these traders. They were individual traders that were simply sharing an idea and sharing a thought. That's when the elites of the nation decided to fight back. They proceeded to block everyday Americans from exercising their rights in the free market. They decided to block them from participating in stock trades. That popular application Robinhood that I mentioned a moment ago, they restricted trading, even forcing some traders to sell their shares when they didn't want to do so. Other applications and trading platforms blocked trades as well. Users were reporting that when they were forced to sell their stock, they took a $100 or $200 loss. They were showing images of Robinhood's messages saying, "We're blocking you from these trades and we're forcing you to sell your stock." This should be illegal. It is market manipulation, because what happened as a result of this forced block, it forced the stock price back down, and it saved those hedge funds thousands, if not millions of dollars. Multiple lawsuits have been filed, and those lawsuits are going to be class action lawsuits. People are going against multiple trading platforms, and calls for an investigation were made. Senator Ted Cruz and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez both agreed that what happened should not have happened, and that an investigation should occur. They called on the Financial Services Committee to investigate Robinhood and said Robinhood and these other platforms should be liable for the actions they had taken. The companies argued that it had everything to do with their own liquidity. They said that they were forced to shut down the trades to allow them to push cash into their accounts to cover the costs of the trade. It still resulted in restrictions on Americans and the loss of money. Throughout the event, there are several things that we must take into account and learn from. First, the elites of this country have a lot of money, and they have a lot of control over things. We all know this. but they utilized their position to pressure the blockage to be placed. They utilized their position and practiced crony capitalism, saving themselves millions and billions of dollars. It was illegal market manipulation. They were in those positions, and not one single person forced them to be in those short positions. They willingly were in those positions with those stocks. But they forced the punishment of average Americans because those average Americans outsmarted them. Their actions here are a direct attack on capitalism, and they must be addressed. But the second thing to learn here is that this is a very good example of socialism and communism at work, and how it never works. While the left wants you to believe that the redistribution of wealth could happen, and they want you to believe in it and think that it's a great idea, it will never happen. When you let the elites have power and control, the end result is that the haves and have-nots end up battling it out. And you see here that the haves, those that had millions and billions of dollars, won. The manipulation that was conducted on the stock market was just like China has done with its own currency, and how China has manipulated its economy. That is a communist nation. That is what our socialist friends want. It doesn't work. The manipulation results in those who are in power retaining their power and gaining more power and wealth. But in reality, everyday citizens suffer. Socialism has not and will not ever work. Just as those investors lost their money at the hands of hedge funds and trading platforms that restricted their access, so would all Americans suffer at the hands of communism and socialism. Finally, the last thing to see here is that President Joe Biden did nothing for these Americans. The man who has claimed he is the president of all Americans and that he would fight for all Americans. He said that in his inaugural address. He remained silent. And he had an opportunity to act, but he chose not to. His press secretary instead simply referred to an SEC statement that lacked any substance. It probably had something to do with the $147 million or so that Wall Street executives poured into his campaign to help him win the White House. See, Biden can't physically just write them a check to pay them back for helping him get the White House, but he can certainly repay them by remaining silent and refusing to intervene on the behalf of those blue-collar workers that he has always claimed he identifies with. Time and again, Joe Biden's divisive policies and actions are proving that he is not a president to all Americans. He is only a president to a select group of Americans, those that he chooses to represent. This time, he chose the Wall Street millionaires. This time, he said everyday Americans do not matter. Now, if only everyone, including the mainstream media, would pay attention. Until next time. The Closet Conservative Podcast is a production of The Liberty Loft. Copyright The Liberty Loft 2021. You can find more shows and information on our website, www.thelibertyloft.com, or on any of our social media channels. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with your friends.